Howdy everyone, my name is Michael Jimenez. I'm 24 years old and I'm the owner and operator of JMZ Farms, a 25-acre operation currently running around 500 chickens. I've been featured on CBS, Telemundo, Egghead Podcast, and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. But today in this video, I'm gonna tell you pretty much how I got here and where it all started. Well, it all started on this one Easter Sunday whenever I was 12 years old. I went to church and one of the church moms was passing out baby chicks. Me having no idea on how to raise a baby chick, I went up in line and asked for one of the baby chicks she was handing out, and she of course gave me one. And I remember bringing it home, and as soon as I brought it home, my mom was like, "Get that animal out of my house." She wasn't too fond of animals. It took a little bit of convincing to get her to say yes to let me keep this baby chick, but she told me that if I created a plan on how to raise this baby chick, on how I would take care of it, that I can keep it. So from there it started. I hopped on YouTube and I searched up how to raise a baby chick. After watching at least 15 videos, I created my plan, gave it to her, and she accepted it, and she said, "You know what, you can keep this baby chick." After some time I had been raising this baby chick, I would just watch countless videos, video after videos, where I would just get in loopholes of YouTube videos specifically about chickens. I ended up running into a man named Justin Rhodes, and he would vlog his family and his farm doing an organic regenerative farm that him and his family were pretty much running, and they were raising food for themselves. And I thought it was so cool, and it honestly was so inspiring that I subscribed and I would watch their videos daily, every single day. But one of the biggest things that he would always reference was Joel Salatin. He said Joel Salatin created this regenerative farming, pastured poultry method that he follows. And I had no idea who he was until one day I got that curiosity to search up, okay, who is Joel Salatin? And that's where I got into another loophole of videos of learning who Joel Salatin was. So after getting into that loophole of videos, learning of who Joel Salatin was and what he was doing, I found out that Joel Salatin is the grandfather of this pasture-raised operation, pasture-raised and rotational grazing operation, where you can raise your hands on pasture and move them throughout the pasture. They produce way better eggs than what's inside commercial farms. Once he would speak about commercial farms, I began getting into loopholes of videos. Well, if I wanted to make a chicken egg farm, how could I learn? I got into even more loopholes of videos. Being so young, I was just watching video after video. Seeing Joel Salatin have his whole operation doing pastured poultry egg operation, it genuinely inspired me because I already had that one chicken. I wanted to build a similar operation that he had, but just on a larger scale and here in Texas. I remember being that young, seeing so vividly this dream that I have of me having a farm, me owning the business of an egg farm in the future. And I remember it was just a vision I had as a kid. Being that young kid watching all these videos, I saw myself in the future one day having a farm, and I believed it so much. After some years, I was in high school, and my sophomore year in high school, there was a club that I was introduced to called Business Professionals of America, or BPA as a lot of other people know it. It is a national club that is competition based on business and operations and pretty much everything that goes into running a business, but it's all competition based. And at the time I still had my chickens. They introduced me to this entrepreneurship competition that they had, and I was genuinely intrigued. The whole idea or the whole premise of this entrepreneurship competition was that you created this business plan for a business you plan to make or want to make, and they give you reference materials on how exactly it's supposed to look and all the financials and operations and everything like that. So that's where I kind of learned the basis of business. But I loved the idea so much that I was like, oh man, the first thing I thought was, oh, I can implement JMZ Farms. Well, at the time I called it Jimenez Farms. I remember getting that reference of pretty much what a business plan's supposed to look like, and I just started going at it, and I created a business plan of this imaginary 5-acre organic pasture-raised egg farm. And it was awesome to be able to have spent time to do that and do everything. Was super excited to do everything like that out of free will, and it didn't feel like homework to me. And so then there was a regional competition for all the schools in the DFW area for all the students in BPA to compete against each other. And so that was cool. It was an easy win. You know, everyone got the easy pass to go to the next competition. Was the state competition, which was all the students within the state of Texas that were in this club to compete. It was in Dallas that we had the competition, and I remember presenting this business plan to these judges, and they were so intrigued and so inspired by it that I remember when my time had ran out, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to stop presenting, and that's your time. They loved the story so much that even though my time mine did run out, they let me continue until I finished. And I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, oh wow, you know, that's awesome. That's very nice of them. After presenting, I remember I was like, oh man, I didn't do that well. I felt like I didn't do that well. Then we had the award ceremony. They only called up 5 people that placed in the award ceremony. I was one of the people that they had called up. Personally, I was not expecting anything like that at all, but I was so excited. I was like, no way that they're calling my name. So I remember they called us up to the stage, and we walked on stage, and they were going to present us our plaques and our medals. And I remember everyone being called up on stage, but they haven't called my name yet. Like, they called, okay, 5th place this person, 4th place this person, 3rd place this person. And then I'm just like, when are they gonna call me? I'm thinking they're gonna call me, oh, they're gonna call me 2nd place. 2nd place, another person. And then in 1st place, Michael Jimenez. And I was like, what? Like, there's no way. Like, what? And I won 1st place out of the whole state of Texas with my plan, Jimenez Farms. I couldn't believe it. I was super excited. I could probably, here's a video now, I can show you that. But of course, I was super excited and super hyped up. I didn't even know what to do. I just saluted, and I was just like, yeah. After that, I mean, it really inspired me. I was like, okay, this business idea that I created could really do something, and it can really mean something for people. And I mean, it genuinely boosted my morale. And of course, time went on. For me, I don't have family that is in agriculture or anything like that, or anyone that has access to land. My mom just had her backyard, so I could only go as far as how many chickens I could have in my backyard with following the regulations of the city I lived in. Time went on, and you know, I just had found issues just finding funding to get land, because to do the operation that I want to do, I wanted to do a pasture-raised operation. You do need, you know, a good amount of acreage to be able to move your chickens out on pasture and still leave time for rest, and then for you to be able to bring them back on the same area, but you need time for rest and space. I didn't see it going through. So as time went on, I worked odd jobs. I was working at Chipotle. During my time at Chipotle, I remember I did get rid of my chickens. I became a overnight security officer my senior year of high school. I remember working overnight Monday through Friday, and then having Saturdays and Sundays off, and then I would go to school in the morning. After high school, I ended up becoming a mechanic for FedEx for the trailers, and then I became an accountant. And during that time as an accountant, I really found the love again for business and learning about business and how it actually ran, because I was looking at all the numbers and understanding the books of it. And it inspired me to start Jimenez Farms over again. I had reached out to one of my uncle's friends that is an artist, and his name is Austin, and he helped me create this idea that I wanted. I sent him a picture of me in a blue and red flannel with my hand like this, doing like a wink face and like this, and I was like, can you do a drawing of me like that? So this is the picture right here, and so that's the picture that I asked him to use. He came up with the JMZ Farms logo, and I fell in love with it as soon as I saw it. I loved it off first sight, and I was like, this is the one. So I created this logo, and then I even got some chickens again, and I started raising them in my mom's backyard, and they started producing eggs. So that was awesome. I got to a point where I was selling to neighbors, and then I even got to eventually selling to my coworkers. And it was so cool because the CFO of the company, his name was Mark, he found an interest, and he found out that I was raising chickens. One day we were in a meeting room. Someone had asked me about how my chickens doing, and I was like, oh, they're doing well. And coincidentally, Mark was in the same meeting room as well, and he asked, oh, you have chickens? And I was like, yeah. He was like, that's pretty cool. And so I even offered, I was like, hey, you know, would you like a dozen or two? You know, I can bring you some eggs if you would like some. He was like, yeah, of course I would like to get some. So of course the next day I brought him 4 dozen. I was thinking, you know, he could pass them out to some of his coworkers. Hey, you know, Michael from the accounting team gave me these eggs, you know, try them out if you wanted to. But then I also said, or you could keep them for yourself. And he loved it, and he thought it was so awesome. So then one Wednesday I was at work. I was going to the restroom, and I believe he was going to his office. We had crossed paths. He had asked me again, oh, hey Mike, how are your chickens doing? I was like, they're doing well, you know, laying a bunch of eggs. Let me know if you need some eggs. He was like, okay, for sure. Then he asked the question, what do you think you could do on 5 acres? I was like, what? First thing that popped in my head was, oh, I did a business plan for an imaginary 5-acre farm of an egg operation that I wanted to do. And so I told him, I said, oh, I can make X amount. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, actually, I can have a business plan for you by Friday. He was like, okay. And then after that, we went our separate ways. I went to the restroom, of course, but I remember getting into that restroom stall and just thinking, oh my gosh, like, oh snap, I need to get my business plan down. I need to dust it off, pull it out that flash drive, revamp it, update it, fix it up, and then present it to him. I guess, like, I knew I could do it soon, fast. So I said I could give it to him by Friday to at least give me a day because it was Wednesday. I remember being in the restroom just like, okay, once I get home, I'm gonna pull out this business plan, revamp it, fix it up, do everything I need to do, and then have it ready by Friday. And I go back to my desk, and as soon as I get back to my desk, I have an email meeting invite from Mark at 9 a.m. at his office. And I was like, oh man, that's when the pressure really felt on. I was like, okay, this is for real now. And I accepted the invite, and I mean, I went home and I started working on it, man. And I started going at it and re-looking at everything, by every little sentence, every detail, everything, so I can present it just like I had presented in that competition. And so yeah, Friday comes along and I present him the whole business plan of Jimenez Farms that I had created. But of course, I had the new logo of the JMZ Farms, so that was on there. And I had, of course, converted the name from Jimenez Farms to JMZ Farms because I felt like Jimenez was hard to pronounce, but JMZ Farms is something easy and fast to remember. It was actually thanks to my Theo Nick that helped me out get JMZ Farms. So that's an abbreviation of Jimenez, which is my last name. So yeah, I presented this business plan and he was genuinely impressed. He loved the whole idea of it, of what I was trying to do and how I was trying to do it. And then he revealed to me that he had 5 acres in Colleyville, Texas. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. He said, there's a house on there, but would you be open to expanding your business and really opening your wings there in that 5-acre operation? And without even thinking, I said, yes, of course, not even knowing the rent, not even knowing anything. I was like, yes. And he was like, okay, awesome. Not even a couple months later, I moved in, and I remember I hit the ground running because thankfully he did help me out. He gave me a loan to start out, and I purchased my chicks, I purchased my equipment, I purchased feed, everything I needed to raise these baby chicks to be hens, and then everything they would need to lay their eggs. It was super exciting getting all those baby chicks, everything coming in. I ended up being at that property for about a year, and it was awesome because during that time of being at that property, I remember the only thing I really did was I set up a farm sign, a JMZ farm sign with the new logo that I had created. And then I had created a website for JMZ Farms. And on that website, it led you to a landing page that just talked about what JMZ Farms was, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. And it got a lot of traction that over the 6-month period that I was raising these baby chicks to lay these eggs, I ended up getting over 400 signups of people wanting to be notified when my eggs were going to be available. And that was awesome in itself. As soon as the chickens started laying eggs, I mean, these eggs were selling out by themselves. And it was so awesome. Of course, a year had gone by, some time had went by. Martha reached out to me from Telemundo on Instagram and asked if she could do a segment on me. It was during that egg crisis that grocery stores weren't having groceries and they weren't having eggs readily available for consumers. There's a big thing on local egg farms and everything like that, so it was awesome publicity. So she asked if she could do a segment here at my farm, and I said, of course. That was my first news press release, and I thought it was so cool, super exciting. I remember having my whole family knowing about it, and they were all watching it live. And it was super exciting and super fun. Honestly, one of my best experiences ever. But after that Telemundo interview, Mark ended up telling me that some developers came to the property and they put out an offer that he couldn't refuse. I totally understood. It's just business. And so thankfully he did give me a 3 months notice ahead of time, letting me know that this was gonna be happening, that these developers were gonna be purchasing that property. And I said, okay. I remember whenever he told me, I didn't know what to do, and I was scared. Honestly, I remember going home crying and then calling my dad, calling my mom, letting them know what was going on, and letting them know I didn't know what I was gonna do. I went to my last resort. I prayed. I asked God. I said, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? Is this what I'm supposed to continue doing? For me, I think the first thing that I thought after I prayed was, well, I gotta also let my customers know about the situation, about what's going on. And so I did. I sent out an email to all my customers letting them know that I'm possibly going to be losing the farm if I don't find some property for me and my 500 chickens and 2 dogs. And because it had already been a year, I had grown to already 500 chickens, and then I had my 2 livestock guardian dogs. So I let everyone know through email what was going on, and I received so many responses back and so many prayers back from my customers saying, oh my gosh, this is horrible news and I'm so sorry. I'm gonna be on the lookout. If I can be of any help, please let me know. And it was awesome receiving all those prayers, thoughtful messages back from my customers that supported me. But one day, of course, business is running as normal as I'm still trying to figure out the situation. And one day that I'm doing my deliveries on Saturday, I go to one of my customers, William and Angela, and they asked me, hey, we saw that email. How's everything going? Have you seen anything? Have you been looking at properties? And already at this time, I had found this property, and they were actually selling it in 2 lots. They were selling 12.5 acres, lot A, and then 12.5 acres for lot B, which is this other side of the property. And I was like, yeah, I actually saw this property in Bridgeport. I think it would be really nice for me. And I actually had it on my phone, so I even started showing them. I said, this is it. And then they said, well, if you want, we can buy it for you. And I was like, no way. Like, are you serious? I told him, are you serious? Like, no way. Why? Like, no, I don't even remember what I said. I remember just being in that moment, like, what? Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And they said that we want to help you, and we feel bad about your situation. And William, he said, I've been in that situation where banks don't really want to help you out or anything like that. So I want to help you out, so you don't even, it's one less thing you have to worry about. And I told him, I said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was like, that would be awesome. They said, let's have dinner and let's talk more about it. And I said, okay, let's do that. We scheduled a day for dinner. We ended up having that dinner, and then I showed them the property again, giving them more details about everything that I found out about it. They loved it, and I told them, I said, but so they're selling 2 lots. It's 12.5 acres and 12.5 acres, but I just want to purchase, I think this was lot B or lot A, I think. And because it had more pasture, then the other side had more forestry. And they were like, okay, well, if you want, we can buy both. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Like, no way. Oh, I mean, are you sure? He's like, yeah. But because I had said I want to buy lot A, and then I plan to purchase that adjacent lot right next to it later to continue to grow my operation. And then he had said the comment, he said, well, we can buy both. And I was like, no way, are you serious? Like, I mean, the excitement of everything that was going on, I was like, what, are you serious? No way. And he said, yeah, we can buy both if you need me to. And I was like, I don't even think that would be necessary, but that would be awesome. Yeah, so we ended up going through the whole dinner, and we ended up coming to the conclusion that let's meet up with the realtor, let's set up a lunch, and then let's start getting this going. And I was like, okay. I said, let's do it. And I genuinely couldn't believe it. And at that point, I just knew that it was God. Like, it had to have been God that he was setting this way through. So we went to lunch with the realtor. We signed all the papers. We did everything that needs to get done. And after a week, the property eventually was ours. I had the land. It was 25 acres. And the only thing it had was an old well house, and it did have electricity on the property. So that was awesome. But there was no house or no garage storage or barn or anything like that. So my next thing was, okay, what's the best, cheapest option that I can use to have a home and then also have a garage to store my feed and store my eggs and everything like that. And then of course to have in the future my egg cleaner and all that stuff inside the garage. So I created the whole plan of the best option for me that would be fast, simple, and quick would be getting a manufactured home and then getting one of these storage buildings built. 25 foot by 40 foot long garage with two 12 foot garage doors on each side for my future tractor and everything like that. So I planned out everything. The only thing is that I needed the money to get these items. So I came up with the total of everything because I didn't have water. So setting up electricity, setting up water, setting up the house, everything that I'll need to do, I came with the total. And I was like, okay, well now I need to go to a bank and get this money. My first thought was, well, before I go to a bank and try and get this money, what about if I ask Mark? So yeah, I set a meeting with Mark and I told him the whole situation of everything that had happened. Within like 1.5 months of him telling me this information that he was selling the property to developers and that I had 3 months, I told him that I ended up having customers that purchased 25 acres for me and I'm gonna be moving there in Bridgeport. And he was astonished and he was like, wow, that's amazing. He was like, no way. And I, just like how I was like, yeah. And I told him everything that happened, how I sent the email and showed him everything. And he said, wow. He said, Michael, you are very industrious. At the time, I was just like, oh, thank you so much. And I didn't even have any idea what industrious meant until after the meeting. I Googled it and then I learned that it was like a very hardworking, diligent person that, you know, just doesn't stop no matter what. It was something like that. This is the definition right here that I found. So yeah, and I was like, well, thank you very much. And so then I told him, but I don't have a house and I don't have storage, and that's one of the biggest things that I would need. Would you be open to loaning me some money? And then I told him how much. And he said, well, that's a lot of money, Michael. And I said, yes, sir, it is. I totally understand. And I said, I don't want you to feel obligated to say yes. You know, if it's a no, it's a no. I completely understand. It's no problem at all. He said, okay, let me review all of this. I had given him a price sheet of literally everything I was going to purchase and the total at the end. He said, let me talk with my wife and we can talk soon. I said that I totally understand, that works. I just said, thank you for taking the time to even talk to me right now. I really appreciate it. He said, of course. I shook his hand and I walked out the office. I remember just being at my desk and being so nervous and scared. The day went on. The next day, got a text from him and he said, hey, call me. So I called him and he said, hey, Money Mike. And I was like, hey, what's going on, Marky? And he says, I talked it over with my wife and we're gonna let you borrow the money. And I said, are you serious? Oh my gosh, Marky, like, you're seriously making my dream come true. Like, there's no way. Are you serious? And he was like, yeah, we want to help you out. And, you know, you already gotten this far. We want to make sure you're doing well. You're going to do well. And we trust that you're going to do well. And I was like, yes, sir, of course, I am. And I said, I'm gonna be the best farm in Texas. And he says, you're gonna be the best farm in the world. And I was like, yes, sir, I like that attitude, yes, sir. And he said, don't let me down. And I said, no, sir, I won't. I said, I won't. And I said, thank you so much, Marky, again, for this opportunity. You're seriously making my dreams come true. He said, of course, man, I love hearing that. So we hang up the phone, and I mean, I was super excited, of course. I was like, everything is into place, everything is in motion. It was like perfect. And I genuinely couldn't have believed it. So after we had made that call, I mean, it was game on. So I started working on everything with the manufactured home, getting the manufactured home and the garage set up. And we ended up getting it set up, and I moved in around January of 2025. But the biggest thing was, it was so cold during that time that they weren't drilling any wells, and they weren't gonna be able to drill wells until February. But little did I know it wasn't gonna be till the end of the month, February. They ended up drilling it then. So during that time, I was still working as an accountant, of course. I was coming home, feeding my chickens, doing my chores. Then after that, I would go to the Love's gas station that was 20 minutes away, take a shower and get cleaned up. And then I would get my clothes ready for the next day, go to bed, and then I would go to the office. And then at the office, I would go to the gym, brush my teeth, get ready, even take another shower if I wanted to. Then I would go to my desk from the office gym. And that's pretty much what I was doing for a couple months. And I was like, man, this is not sustainable at all. I was honestly so tired of it. It was horrible. But it honestly taught me so much, and it's definitely gonna be memorable for me. Anyway, so we ended up getting water at the property, which was awesome. It was pretty smooth, it ran pretty smooth, but just the commute from coming to and from work was about an hour and a half. And depending on traffic, coming back from the office to the farm, it was 2 hours. And it was so tiring and draining, just the driving. And then, of course, having to come and do chores, wash eggs, package them up, and then do everything else. And I was just tired of it, and I really couldn't do it anymore. So I was coming to a point where I was like, man, this drive, this work, I genuinely just rather be farming. But coincidentally, during that same time, that egg crisis was still going on. So then the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reached out through email, and they said, hey, the egg crisis that's going on, we would love to do an interview on you and your farm and see what you're doing. And I said, yeah, okay, that would be awesome. And they came a week later, they did the interview, they took some photos, and she asked me some questions. It was all like, they do paper newspapers, but I didn't realize how big they were. And then not too long after that, CBS Texas reached out. They said, hey, we saw your farm on Google, you have great reviews, we would love to come to your farm and do a segment on you. I said, of course, let's do it. And so we scheduled a time. Not even a week later, they came out, they did a whole segment on me. And towards the end of February, they posted it, and I really didn't even know when they were gonna post it. It was more so when they did it. And I remember one day being home towards the end of February, waking up to my phone just dinging, like ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding, ding. And I was like, what is going on? And I woke up to that noise. So I look over, turn over my phone, and I'm getting orders. There's egg subscription orders, just one after another, after another, after another. It's within seconds that they're coming. I was like, what is going on? I didn't even understand. One of my customers had reached out and told me, they said, hey, you're on the front page of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And I was like, what? No way. And they said, yeah. They sent me a photo, and I was like, oh, wow. And so then I put two and two together. I was like, that's what it was. And so that blew me up like wildfire. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. And I was still in bed. I was like, look how many orders I'm getting. I couldn't believe it. And I remember thinking, I was like, I'm not going back to work. But I still did. And then not too long after that, CBS Texas released their new segment they did on me.
So tonight, our Marvin Hurst at a local chicken farm to share a lesson in egonomics.
Michael Jimenez hopes to catch up on a 347 dozen egg backlog because of a cold snap in February. He owns JMZ Farms in Bridgeport, which originated, he says, from a chick he got at church on Easter Sunday.
My family is not in agriculture at all, but I've always had a love and passion for animals, and I correlated that with business. And so I was like, how can I turn it into a business? Farming.
The 23-year-old says he's self-taught from YouTube on how to become a chicken farmer. He turned that one Easter chick that started laying eggs into 500 on 25 acres. Jimenez says he raises a better egg that's better for the body, and he sells them at a higher price.
Me, I sell my eggs for a premium. They're $12.50 a dozen. That's higher than what an average grocery store has them from.
It's a part of a monthly subscription that will bring the eggs right to your door for a 4 dozen minimum.
Thank you.
Jimenez makes rounds in Keller, Westlake, Southlake Trophy Club, and his reach is growing.
Come on in.
Back in Bridgeport, Jimenez says he gained about 85 new customers just this month. And for this first-generation farmer, this is the beginning of his future expansion.
It's a big eye-opener. It's a big interest whenever they see, oh, he's the owner of the farm. He runs the farm, and he's Latino. Because you tend to see my kind of people working the farms, not owning them. So we're changing things around here.
In Bridgeport, Marvin Hurst, CBS News, Texas.
And it just blew up JMZ Farms even more. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so with all that kind of happening, and then the commute and everything, I kind of came to the realization that I think it's time that I do JMZ Farms full time. So towards the end of May, I put in my resignation, and then by April, I was no longer an accountant, and I was full time working for JMZ Farms. That completely changed everything, but it's been such an exciting journey, starting from just that baby chick I received at church and now coming to this, it is seriously a God-given plan that I know he has written for me, and I'm just following through. I mean, God gave me that chicken, and I know he has a plan for me because he wouldn't have blessed me this far. All this to say is that my story is different from everybody's on how they're gonna start and how everything's gonna go for them. For me, it's just been something I've been working on since I was 12 years old. When the opportunity came, I was prepared. I went for it, and I said yes, and I didn't say no to anything. And even when situations did happen, like me having to move out of that 5-acre property in Colleyville and having to find new land, I was scared. I mean, everything that you can think of. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Genuinely, if you believe in God, anything is possible. He will pull you through everything and anything in the world. That's my story on how JMZ Farms started and how I really got here. Don't forget to comment if you have any more questions or anything like that. Check out my other videos that I have on the page, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.